Alrighty, welcome back. We had some good lunch. We went to a small little deli, and I had a nice little smoothie, and it was good. It was actually felt smooth on my throat. I'm kind of fighting a little bit of allergies, so it's kind of fun. We had a young man join us as well this afternoon. His name is Chris, and he's kind of from this Logan area, and he's actually looking at Adilas to help me in the back end and kind of helping us with some different things. And so, Chris, we welcome you here, and just so you know, we'll kind of be playing in and out and whatnot. Shannon, before we really get started kind of back into the meat of our afternoon, let's just talk briefly about what we were talking about at lunchtime, just kind of like progress and tunnel vision, and just lightly, just to kind of get the flow coming back in, and also sometimes how we sometimes will we run so hard and so fast, and we want everything automated that we actually break it by pushing it clear to that level. Because anyway, we've been talking all sorts of days about tools and breaking them, and how do you break your mind or a pen and paper model, volume, complexity, etc., etc. Okay, so like if you're okay with that, go ahead and just kind of make a couple comments, and then we'll get started right back into where we were at.
Sure. I think one of the standout items that I was thinking of from the conversation was anytime you play in the extremes, you tend to have some difficulty. When you get really out of balance one way or the other, it actually presents more challenges than maybe something helpful. Like just with the example you expressed, automated's great. It's so nice to have so many things automated, not have to worry about manually going through and entering everything. But if you automate everything, all of a sudden now you kind of stuck yourself in a hole and you have all sorts of problems. What if you didn't want that automated? Or what if you have special circumstances? Or what if you have to have it very customized or individual, and if it's all automated, then where are you at? Then it's a bigger problem for you. All of a sudden automation's not a help anymore. It's your biggest problem. So anytime you take something to one extreme or the other, you can potentially have some difficulties with it.
Correct. We will have to mix and blend that. I'm just looking at this little vault right here. Imagine if this was fully automated. Would it really be a vault? Click. Okay, cool. I'm in. You know, like
yeah,
they have combinations and padlocks, and like it takes a little effort to get into some things, but like that's kind of cool. Chris, if you're okay with it, what are some of your comments just on between manual versus auto? Let's go like that.
I think sometimes the idea of automating everything, the long story arc is that once it's automated, we have the potential to forget how it works. And that can be a big problem down the road, fixing those things and say, right, if it's all done automatically, how do we keep track of what it's doing?
Okay, correct. This is on a different subject, but I think it totally plays in. My dad, he's getting a little bit older. He's not that old, but he's almost at the retirement age. And he was talking with me about all of the white-haired and gray-haired people that are going to be leaving the workforce who have brought this whole thing up. And they're worried. They're like, oh my goodness, we're leaving the next generation. They're very tech-savvy. They can handle what we've got, but they have no clue where we came from. And so he was talking about almost this tribal knowledge of like passing this knowledge on. And like that's just some conversations that we have as we're on our morning walks. And so I think it plays right along in that same level as far as how things are going. So good stuff. Good stuff. Any other comments or anything? Cool. Let's jump in here. So, Chris, you have never seen what we are doing here as far as actually underneath the covers or the engine of Adilas. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of jump in here and kind of show you a few things. I'm actually going into a Adilas demo site, and I'm just doing a simple password of 1234. This is open to the public per se. You're welcome to jump in there and just kind of play with some different pieces of the puzzle. What I'm going to actually do is we've been playing in all sorts of different little kind of fun play sites and different things like that. In order to kind of keep it somewhat consistent what we've been doing, Shannon was actually in a company called the Seamstress, which is basically, imagine a person who's kind of doing custom sewing jobs for somebody else, suits and dresses and vests and et cetera, and stuff like that. So we kind of had her into this environment. So just to kind of bring you up to speed quickly, you have a number of different pieces of the puzzle that you can play with. This is almost like a buffet. You're going through which pieces do you need, and then we mix and blend them to kind of give you your results. Okay, so certain things that we talk about, what they are is often we cover concepts instead of physical processes, because a process will change depending on the company, the size of it, who the players are. Is it I have this and then I pass it to another person, and then they pass it to another person, or do I do all three things? It actually changes your flow. So we talk often about concepts and how this kind of gets into the puzzle. Okay, we're going to be kind of flipping all around. If you have a question, holler and whatnot, and we'll go from there. Shannon, can I ask for just a little bit of feedback? What did we cover this morning, just so we can kind of get these wheels a cranking?
Definitely. This morning, well, as we've gone through, this is the last day of training now, so we've kind of gone through operations. Other days, we kind of talked about getting inventory of services or whatever it is and selling it out. And then yesterday, we kind of talked about more our customer and elements of time and FlexGrid and combining different pieces to help us bill or work on certain projects, or just different pieces combined together. So today, we kind of started out showing even on your map and the model that as operations lead, it feeds up to accounting. So as you track what's going on in your operations, then all of a sudden you can map to or track your receivables or your payables and various things. So today we've kind of been in the accounting section more so.
Correct.
So,
just to kind of get the wheels a turning just a little bit, we were this morning just in the seamstress. Okay, I'm going to just click on history reports, see what we did today. Okay.
deposits, we went in and deposited and
Correct. So we've made 3 different deposits worth a little over $1,000, $1,500. We did one invoice for $90. We did a new balance sheet item got created, and we did a couple little FlexGrid tie-ins and some different pieces of the puzzle. We have one new log. So literally what we can do here is we can kind of just jump into it and say, what was it? What was the new element of time that we did? Oh, this was starting Adrienne's evening gown for her calendar event. Okay. So technically this was on a thing called Elements of Time homepage, and there was a brand new one that we did today that hit the calendar. Okay. So that was a teeny little piece of the pie. Let's go back to the history homepage again, and we'll run that report. We had some sub dates and times. So you actually added some sub things, what you were doing on Adrienne's little thing, you were finishing, you were cutting, and what it ended up doing was actually adding up how many total hours, and then we billed them. So if I just hit back, go back to that history homepage, there, we did some deposits, but eventually we did an invoice. And so this invoice right here was actually to Adrienne, and if we click on printable, we can actually see it was just for $18 an hour for a total of $90, and we tied it to element of time right here, number 4, so that it kind of started creating these connections between the different pieces of the puzzle. So if I click on 4, it takes me right back here to here's element of time number 4, and here's all those little subs that we just saw as far as what's going on. Chris, this is general, and you may already know this, but we work on a one-to-many model. So everything is object-oriented, and what we do is everything has to have what we call a main. Okay, and probably the easiest way to explain this is actually showing you this little demonstration of a plate. Okay, with little simple cups. So right here, if we're talking about something, the main, this little piece of the puzzle, you have to have a container to kind of put some stuff in, and then some other things to stack some things. Okay, we created element of time number 4. Okay, and then we actually tied it to a special customer, Adrienne, and we actually added some subs in there, and there's 2 subs. So this one virtually has 1, 2, and 3 different little pieces that are in that little bucket. Okay, we also connected it to an invoice, which was a whole nother little main all by itself with its little individual cups. Okay, so we kind of are starting to create all of these little objects. What it does is it allows things to flex. So instead of just rows and columns like in a spreadsheet, and you're imagine trying to track this in a spreadsheet. Like you couldn't do it. Okay, so a bunch of the different pieces start playing in. As she added different things, let's go check the system history for a second. Just for a quick second, just so you can see how these objects kind of start playing into the puzzle. I'm going to flip back to this here, and I'm going to hit history. So behind the scenes, it actually kind of gives us a little bit of a play-by-play. 1013, we created it. Then we assigned a new customer. Then we added a subdate and subtime, and eventually we invoiced it. Like, it's just slowly kind of doing that. So this one actually has about, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has 5 little things stacked in that one little container for system history. So each little piece of the puzzle slowly starts building itself up and different things. But one of the cool things that ended up happening was this particular invoice was for $90 eventually. So if I click on Working with Time, it actually turns it into a physical link right back to that invoice. Well, this invoice for $90 was cash. Well, what we ended up doing was ended up tying that to a deposit. So it ended up going back into the puzzle. So right here, I'm currently in the printable mode. If I go into the edit mode on this invoice, scroll down to the same spot, it was on deposit number 2. If I click on deposit number 2, here's what else was on there. But here's the $90 cash that was for invoice 11. Okay, so you start getting into multiple one-to-many relationships, and then we slowly are kind of building and connecting and joining the pieces of the puzzle. Okay, so right here where we were looking at our history reports, we briefly talked about the elements of time. We saw that that was that custom project. Okay, here's the 2 little subthings. What happens is because we're just looking at today's date, it's showing us just this information. If we wanted to expand that, we just change the search criteria, and all of a sudden the computer will virtually return and report what is actually happening. Okay, so here's some of the different little pieces of the deposit. Oh, what's this $1,000 one? Like if you have a question, you can go check on it. Oh, we've done 3 deposits. What were they, etc. Shannon, do you remember much about what happened here with this $1,000 that was under a balance sheet item?
Yeah, definitely. We put it in as our own external, you called it, asset. I don't remember what you called it, but we basically created a balance sheet item because it didn't come through the normal process of our invoices from customers. We inputted that money into the business, so we just started a balance sheet item, user maintained balance sheet item, to track that money.
Correct. So we put it into an equity account, and we said money paid in by Brandon, and we're just slowly kind of tying some pieces together. But this is a thing called FlexGrid, and Shannon, can you quickly kind of describe what possibly a piece of FlexGrid is? Let me go back to the history homepage for just a second, and we'll just actually jump into the pieces of FlexGrid you've added today. Okay, you have 2 of them. Now these are going to be completely different. One was tied to a deposit, to a balance sheet item, and then it had some notes, okay? The other one has a whole bunch of this other stuff here. And what is that? I'm just going to hit refine search for just a second and change that to customer and submit. Just so that I can just, now all of a sudden, because it's not ambiguous in trying to mix balance sheet and customers, I now have perfect things. What was this one for?
This was for measurements. So FlexGrid has great capacity to be as flexible as you want it to be. It's almost like your own customizable database on top of all the tools that are already added to Adilas. So you could connect just things together, like with the other piece of FlexGrid you saw that we connected an invoice to a deposit or made some special ties. You could just add notes anywhere you wanted if you needed notes. This function of FlexGrid that we used here for this was actually to create our own custom database. So we wanted to track measurements, so we created, which other industries wouldn't care about this at all, so we used FlexGrid to track and have our customers hold special pieces of data like hip measurements, waist, inseam, etc., etc. You can make this whatever you want, whatever data points you wanted to track. So that's more the customizable database. But that's what FlexGrid can do. It can tie anything together in the system. Essentially, all your main players or even within the same players, you can add any extra notes to anything that maybe doesn't have an area to add notes or special data that you would like to track. And then it has a customizable aspect where you can add up to 15 custom fields per item to track special data points. So.
Okay, awesome. We're not trying to confuse you at all, and I think it's actually kind of fun, but what happens inside of Adilas is you start virtually telling the story. What happened? Well, Abrianne came in, okay? We had to get her measurements. Adilas didn't have those fields. Oh, crap, I need them. So we created them really quick so we could basically, we knew it was standard for her particular industry. She needed those data points. So we added them, and then we were able to connect that data. And then all of a sudden, she started on the custom project, and we virtually went through a custom project. And then we invoiced. What happens is operations starts leading out, okay? Normal day-to-day business transactions We don't even touch accounting at all. We're just saying, what happened? Okay, now she paid. Great. You know, oh, now what do I do with this money? Now I have to deposit it. Now I have to, like, basically, we take it from one step to the next step to the next step as far as how that goes. But I'm just going to jump back one more time to the history homepage and just kind of pop into one other thing, but it'll kind of bring you up to speed as far as where we've been today. Okay? So invoices, we did balance sheets, we did add the little sub-item, we did some flex criterions, and we did a customer log note. Shannon, what's a log note?
It's attached to the customers, and it's just any kind of notes you would like to keep, and you can add one after the other after the other.
Yep. So just for instance, say that she really liked it. Literally, like, you can choose all sorts of different stuff. Is this an appointment, an email, a delivery, in person, left message, etc., etc., etc. I just put it under a general note. Add the log. So it automatically, because this is Abrianne's record, we can add whatever we want to Abrianne's record, whether it's elements of time, like jobs, or calendaring, scheduling, or invoices, things that she's bought, how much does she owe me. Like, everything starts to become interconnected according to this object. So it kind of makes a lot of object-oriented is basically what happens. And when you start talking about that, it gets into what's called a relational model. And you're probably very familiar with some of that type of technology, if you will. Okay? Great.